Okay, so first things first, we all do embarrassing things, and that is just part of being a human. And if you're lucky enough to live a long life, you're going to say something weird, trip over your own feet, send the text to the wrong person, and maybe even flash a grocery store employee. Ask me how I know. The problem is when one embarrassing moment turns into a story about who you are. Because at that point, you're not really feeling embarrassment anymore. The feeling that you're getting now is shame, and shame always attacks your identity. So if you've been replaying the same cringy moment for years, we're not going to spend this video trying to convince you that it wasn't embarrassing at all or that no one was watching. We're going to get your identity off the line, because once you stop letting that moment define who you are, your brain finally has permission to let it go. So let's uproot this one together. Let me show you what I mean. Honestly, I had to sit here and think of a regular embarrassing moment, because those are usually the ones that I tend to forget. Well, actually, now I thought of two. One time, I was at the mall with my sister, and I saw this guy, this really cute guy that I knew, and I got all excited. I jumped up to say hi, and my sister kept on trying to stop me before I left to say something, but I just completely ignored her, and I was like, no, leave me alone. Turns out I had like chocolate all over my teeth, and I talked to him and I smiled throughout the whole conversation, walked back, and she goes, that is exactly what I was trying to tell you. Was it embarrassing? Yeah, absolutely. But afterwards, I didn't think, oh my God, I'm disgusting, or I'm such an idiot, or anything like that. I just thought, well, whatever, that was unfortunate. Or another time, I was at the grocery store shopping in a tube top, and I got bigger titties. I reached up to grab something from the top shelf at the grocery store, and my entire left titty came out right in front of the older gentleman stocking the shelves. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. Was it mortifying? Yeah, absolutely. Would I choose to relive it? No. But neither of those moments changed how I saw myself. They didn't become part of my identity. I was able to laugh it off. Those were embarrassing, and then they were over. That is embarrassment. And if you're into this kind of root cause self-development where we don't just treat the symptoms, we uproot them, make sure you subscribe, because that's exactly what we do here every week. Okay, now let me tell you about the moment that wasn't just embarrassing. It became shame. So when I was about 15 years old, I went to a party where this boy I was dating was there. And you know how it is when you're 15. It wasn't some serious relationship. Anyways, we were all standing around together at this party talking, when out of nowhere, he looked at me and one of my friends and told me to just walk away. He had like this terrified look on his face. And so we did. We walked away. And a few seconds later, his mom came after us, and she grabbed me and spun me around and started screaming at me in front of everyone at the entire party. And everybody there just stopped. Everyone stared while she called me the most horrible names. And these are things that I wouldn't say to my worst enemy, let alone basically a child. But what was different was she attacked my character, my appearance, who I was as a person. I was just 15 years old, and nobody stepped in. And my best friend and I literally hid in the bushes for the rest of the night until my dad picked us up. And it was so bad, I couldn't even tell my parents about what happened. People came up to me about that for years that passed. And for the longest time, I thought that I was embarrassed, but looking back, I wasn't. I was ashamed, because I didn't just think, oh, that was humiliating. I thought, oh my gosh, maybe she's right. And that's the difference. Embarrassment says something embarrassing happened. Shame says maybe this says something about who I am. And as a grown woman now, I see that memory completely differently. And it's not because I've forgotten about it, and it's not because it didn't hurt. It was because the things she said don't line up with who I know myself to be. My brain cannot use that memory as evidence anymore, because it does not support my identity. When I was 15, I didn't know any better. I was young, I was impressionable, and I let someone else's words become part of the story that I essentially believed about myself. And now they don't fit anymore. Sure, the memory is still there. It didn't erase anything, but the shame isn't. That's why I can talk about it so openly. So let me ask you something. What are you actually struggling with? Is it genuine embarrassment or is it shame? Because you've got to distinguish the two. Embarrassment says, that was an awkward moment. Shame says, that awkward moment says something about who I am. And those are two completely different experiences. And until you know which one you're dealing with, you'll keep trying to solve the wrong problem and your brain will start spinning in circles. So maybe you stumbled over your words during a presentation, and instead of thinking, I was just nervous, you thought, oh, I'm terrible at speaking. That's an identity problem. Maybe no one laughed at your joke, and instead of thinking that joke didn't land, your brain said, I'm awkward. Maybe you waved at someone who wasn't actually waving at you. One person laughs it off, the other thinks, I always make a fool out of myself. So do you see what's happening here? The event isn't what's actually hurting you. It's the meaning that you have attached to it. So here's a question I want you to think about. When your brain keeps replaying that embarrassing moment, is it actually replaying the moment, or is it trying to prove something you already believe about yourself? Because if that's what's happening, that's actually good news. It means we now know where to look. Okay, so if your brain is going to replay this memory anyway, we might as well make it useful. Instead of asking, why do I keep thinking about this? Ask, what is this memory trying to prove about me? Is it trying to prove that I'm stupid, awkward, unlikable, not good enough? Then ask yourself, do I believe that this is actually true? If the answer is yes, don't stop there. I need you to ask why. Where did I learn that? Who taught me that? What evidence am I using? And is that evidence actually fair? And if you need help with that, don't forget to download my free downloadable why exploration method. It's going to help you through this entire process. Here's what I've learned. Our brains are incredible lawyers. Once they decide on a belief, they'll spend years collecting evidence for it. That's why you ruminate on that shit over and over, even if it happened years ago. If I believe I'm awkward, I'll remember every awkward conversation. I'll completely forget the hundreds of conversations that were just normal and fine. If I believe I'm stupid, I'll remember every mistake and I will overlook every single success. So healing isn't pretending that the embarrassing thing never happened. Healing is separating the event from the conclusion. The event might be true. The conclusion isn't necessarily. Yes, I had chocolate in my teeth. Yes, my titty made an unexpected appearance at the grocery store. And yes, that woman screamed horrible things at me. Those are facts. But I'm disgusting, I'm stupid, I'm unworthy, I'm the kind of person she said I was. Those are conclusions, and conclusions can be questioned, they can be challenged, they can be replaced. They do not have to become a part of your identity. I really hope by at the end of this video, you're able to give yourself a little bit more grace, because being human means saying the wrong thing and looking awkward and making mistakes and doing things that make you want to crawl into a hole. And that is not a character flaw. That's the admission price for being alive. The moment happened, the story you've been telling yourself about that moment, that's the part that you can change. The shame starts losing its grip the moment you stop treating one experience like proof of who you are. So instead of saying, this defines me, start saying, this happened to me. One is an identity. The other is an experience. Experiences don't get the final say on who you are. They become a story, not a verdict. And if this video made you realize your brain has a habit of replaying moments over and over again, then I want you to watch this next one, because embarrassing moments aren't the only thing that our brains replay. We replay conversations, arguments, and interactions looking for certainty, trying to figure out what we should have said differently. In that video, I explain exactly why your brain does that, and more importantly, how to stop getting stuck in those mental loops. I hope this helped you, and I'll see you there.